Now for our next story with author Beth Finke. Welcome to Indiana Public Radio. We're pleased to have a way to appeal to the crossover crowd between Dog Fancy and NPR.
Thanks.
You're here on campus as a guest of the English department.
That's correct.
To do what?
I'm going to be speaking to creative writing classes, and then tomorrow, Friday, I'll be giving a reading, and then signing books for people at the Barnes & Noble Cafe in the afternoon.
What time do you know?
3 o'clock for the reading and 4 o'clock for the signing.
Now, you are blind, and you've been blind since the mid-'80s, so you'll pardon maybe a really ignorant question, but how will you do a reading?
Yeah, no, that is not an ignorant question at all. Well, if I could read Braille better than I can, I would do it with Braille. But I can read Braille, but I am very, very slow at it. And if ever, people would be there for hours listening to me read. So what I'm going to try to do, and I've been doing it at the last couple readings I've been at, I've learned a technique where I put one earphone into one ear, and I listen to my book. I have my book recorded on tape. And I listen to it, and I repeat what I hear in my headphone. It works all right. Earlier on, my book came out on April Fool's Day, and early on, my husband would come with me to the readings when he could, and he actually would read for me.
The title of the book, of your memoir, Long Time No See, kind of a darkly humorous title, I guess, appropriate for April Fool's Day release. And a lot of it has to do with the process of how you lost your vision and how that was for you and your husband, Mike. Memoir, by definition, is very, very personal. But something about that focuses so much on a personal struggle and trial seems like it's even more wrenching. I feel like I know you way too well. What is it to make yourself that open to total strangers like Indiana ArtsDesk?
Well, boy. Be cliched. It's interesting. I got to tell you, it wasn't until the book really came out that I realized what I had done. I knew all along what I was doing. Of course, nobody was putting a gun to my head and telling me to write this. But I can't speak for all memoirists, but in my situation, I started out writing it really for cheap therapy, just to write down what was going on, how I felt. I am a journalist, and so an accomplished writer, I don't know, but I do enjoy writing, and so the writing was very good therapy for me, in that I had to, when I'd think about eye surgeries, or I'd think about when they told me that you wouldn't be able to see again, I had to search and search and search for the right word, and when I'd write it down, and so I'd have to think really hard about, well, how did I feel when they told me that? I'd find the word, I'd write it down, and then I'd set it aside thinking, okay, now I don't have to think about that anymore. I have it. If I need to replay that for some reason, I can get the book out, and in my case, I'd either hear it on tape or listen to it on my talking computer. But it really did help me to write these things down and set them aside and in some ways be done with it.
What are you working on now?
I'm on my self-imposed book tour, and so a lot of times I'm out and about promoting the book. I write for magazines, and so I haven't started my second book yet. I am still promoting the first one and working on magazine articles. I just finished something for the Chicago Tribune Sunday magazine that came out in December, and I am a regular contributor, you mentioned it earlier, to Dog Fancy magazine, the world's most widely read dog magazine.
I read it all the time in high school. Love dogs.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. That's
why, unfortunately, I couldn't keep my
hands
from
off
petting Honey,
yes.
Which I now understand for certain, and without any more ignorance possible on my part that it was wrong, impolite at best.
It's fine. Actually, my family, we didn't grow up with pets at all. I am not a dog lover from childhood, and so I think that Dog Fancy took me on as a writer for that very reason. I don't ooh and goo about dogs. I'm not so connected to the dogs that it gets in the way of my writing. So I write very sexy articles, like my last big feature was ear infections in dogs. That's in the January issue. I just finished last week.
On newsstands now.
Yes, run out. I just finished something on secondhand cigarette smoke and how it affects dogs. That will be in the May issue. And I also write for a magazine called The Bark. I'm constantly querying magazines to try to get articles written and published. And I also write essays for Chicago Public Radio and record those. And I do commentaries for Morning Edition for National Public Radio.
As I have worked in radio, I have become much more appreciative of the rhythm of language and enjoy the way certain sentences roll off the tongue. Have you found that you're writing in a different way than you used to write?
Definitely. And after the book came out, comment after comment, and reviews too, said, it sounds like somebody sitting across the table and talking to you. And I thought, well, that must be because I used two devices to write my book. One was my talking computer. So I type into it, and it parrots the letters as I'm typing into it. But also, when I'm done with a page, I screen to the top, and I sit back, and I have it read it out loud to me. And so I realized after the book came out, well, of course it sounds like somebody's talking to you, because that's how I edit it. I listen to it to see how it sounds rather than read it to see how it looks on paper. And there's a big difference. I write with shorter sentences. I think it is a combination of my using sound to write and also having this experience with Chicago Public Radio and National Public Radio, where you understand when you're talking. You know this, Marcus. When you're on the air, long sentences don't work. It's better to be short and to the point.
We want to remind people of the reading and the signing, 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock, right?
And it's that AJ building. So,
in the Atrium Gallery and then in the Barnes & Noble Cafe.
Correct. And that's Friday, January 30th.
Right. Beth Finke, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Pleasure to talk to you.